Hey guys, welcome back to Vertical Momentum. I'm your host, Richard Kaufman, also known as the Comeback Coach. Guys, this is going to be a special treat for me. They say never meet your heroes. That's bullshit. This gentleman has been a hero of mine ever since I got his first book. I think it was in 2007, 2008. He's an accomplished author. He's been voted the #1 business speaker, motivational business speaker in the UK. He's the Swiss Army knife of positive mindset. Brad, my brother, welcome to the show.
Mate. Thank you so much for having me. And it's great we've got this special relationship endures all these many years on. We've got the US and we've got the UK. Let's do it, brother.
I love it. So, because I have a traumatic brain injury, if I don't ask the question, I'm going to forget it. That's why I have to write it down. What is your definition of resiliency?
That ability to be able to see the positive in any situation. I've been shot at. The pandemic wiped my business out. I've had all sorts of stuff that has come my way. And it's that ability to be able to see the positive in everything. I always ask, when the shit hits the fan, and the shit will hit the fan in your life, what does this make possible? What does this make possible? And by sussing that and answering that, what does this make possible? It makes for a fresh start. It makes for whatever that thing is, you can always find the positive in everything. I go back down to January the 2nd, 1995. I got shot at in Manchester, which is like an inner city over in the UK. And I moved away from my home of 21 years, 200 miles away to effectively a countryside. And I remember feeling upset and downbeat because I wanted to go back to a time and a place that no longer existed. And it's an impossible journey. You can never get back there. So what it's about, I think resilience is about accepting. Doesn't mean you've got to like it, but it means you've got to accept. Whenever we've lost someone, we're all upset. But at some point, you have to accept that individual has gone. And by doing that, the sooner you can get to acceptance, the sooner you can move on. I believe that that's what resilience is.
I love it. But now, if somebody sees you right now, they see all the amazing books, and especially the book you got going on behind you. They see, you got a beautiful family, you got beautiful children, you're living the dream. It's not all been rainbows and unicorns. You've had a lot of struggles in your life, and you actually can actually go back to the one day where you said it was the worst day of your life, but the best day of your life. So give us a quick rundown of who you are, where'd you come from, and how'd you become the force that you are today?
There's two sides of every individual. There's a good version and there's a not so good version. Two sides of the same coin. So am I Brad Burton, the guy whose father left when I was 6 months old? My mum brought me up as a single parent. We moved 14 times from the age of 8 to 14. I left school with no qualifications. I've been addicted to drugs twice. I've done 4 years on social benefits. I got shot at when I was 21. I delivered pizza at 31. I've been addicted to drugs twice. I didn't mention that. Am I that guy, or am I Brad Burton, the UK's #1 motivational business speaker, the 4-time best-selling author, the founder of Fun Network and the UK's largest joined-up business network? Which one am I? Because there are two sides of the same coin. And every single day that we wake up, there's a good version and there's a not-so-good version. And over the years, I've realised how I lean in to that better version of myself. So, two sides of the same coin, and it depends on which people that like me will say the good stuff, and people that don't like me will say all the bad stuff. But what's important throughout all this is that you like yourself. That is crucial to any level of success, that you like yourself.
And I think our stories mirror a lot. I've been I've been clean and sober now 34 years. But I was a drug addict. I was an alcoholic. I was raised by a single parent, moved like 12 or 14 times. Only graduated 8th grade. But for me, when I was growing up, my solace was reading. It was knowledge. And like I said before, I've read over 6,000 books, and your book is in the top 10 of all time. But amazing. That was my solace, was reading and knowledge. When you were going through what you were going through as a kid, what was your solace?
Comic books. And I'll show you something. Lego. This is from 1979. I was into Lego. Lego gave me purpose. It allowed me to build something. It allowed me to use that imagination. So comic books, and Lego. And actually, I enjoyed life. I didn't realize what life was. When you're a kid, you've got no idea that you're in life, but I enjoyed fun. I sought out fun. And that's a trend that has actually kind of followed me throughout my career. Fun. I love fun. So as long as I'm having fun and I'm making progress, I'm having fun and I'm making progress. And that's a good life.
So then, take us back to, like you said, you were addicted twice. So talk to us about the struggle, but then also talk to us about the promises that come true after you get off of the drugs and addiction.
So interesting thing about drugs, okay, is that I had great fun. That's the reality of it. A lot of terrible. I had great fun. Would I want my children doing them? Not a chance, right? So there was times that was fun, but that fun stops becoming fun at some point. That's the reality of it. And you chase that initial buzz or whatever thing that you got. And what happened with me is I felt that my life was over. So at 21, when I got shot at, I had people that put a contract effectively on my head. And I thought my life was over. So I lived every day like it was my last. And that's great, unless, of course, you wake up the next day and it's not your last. And that kind of mindset had kind of locked in. And many, many years I living every day like it was my last. And I think that's why I caused my problems. Do I believe that, if I think about it, and I said, you mentioned it before, the worst day of my life became the best day of my life. You and I would not be speaking right now if it wasn't for me getting shot at. That's the reality of it, because I moved away. And eventually I met my wife. I eventually started a business off. I eventually wrote some books. I eventually became a motivational speaker and so forth. So everything happens for a reason, even the shitty stuff. So when I look at my life and I look at some of the stuff that I've done, I wouldn't change a single thing. None of the bad stuff. I wouldn't change a single thing. Does it mean I liked it? No. But by accepting it and realizing that these things form who you are, they're the building blocks, the Lego of who and what you become. So, the drug scene that I was into, it was good fun until it wasn't good fun. And then I realized that I needed to make change because I got paid, for the sake of this conversation, $4,000 on payday, and I owed $4,500 out on payday. And that's with no rent or anything. And then I realized I had a problem. And the problem is when you're in that environment, is those people you look left and right, they've got the same problem. So therefore, nobody sees the problem. It's a bit like saying to a fish, what's the water like? And the fish says, what fucking water? So it's that whole thing, really. It's about being aware of actually who and what you are.
And, I love that. But now, like I said, I've been clean and sober 34 years. I still go to meetings. And I believe that, some people's ceilings are other people's rooftops. But you had to make a decision, that day that you were sick and tired of being sick and tired. So take us back to the day before and then take us to the day after. What were the changes?
Well, once again, it's all fun and games so I'll give you an example. I was living in a rented accommodation, and I remember going to IKEA. I don't know if you have IKEA in the US, but they're okay. So I went to IKEA, and I remember seeing a lamp, and let's say it was this lamp, and I said, "Oh, I like that lamp. It's I'm going to go buy this lamp." I looked at the price ticket, and it said $120. I'm not paying $120 for a lamp. And then that evening, I went home and I spent $160 on drugs. And it's like, I woke up the next day, no lamp. There was no lamp. And I saw ahead. And I thought, I'm making no progress here. I'm making no progress. And I'm always going to live like this until something changes. And that was the moment when the light went on.
All right. So, my friend James Clear wrote an amazing book called Atomic Habits.
Yep.
And we are the sum of our habits. And for me, when my life changed on 9/11, but the day I got sober was the day that I realized I got to change. I can't hang out with people, places, and things. I have to change my habits. So Absolutely. How did you go about changing your habits? Because once you'd made that decision, well, now I got to act upon it. A lot of people make a decision about something, but never act upon it. So what were your choices?
So I just wrote some notes down there. Interestingly, with my decisions, I have a methodology now that I use for making decisions now. Never had it then, but let me just share it with you because I think from your audience perspective, this is genuinely life-changing, okay? So when it comes to making decisions, I'm the easiest person in the world to make a decision. So you got hold of me and said, hey, Brad, do you want to come on the podcast? I make a decision in 24 seconds. If I can't make a decision in 24 seconds, I'll revisit it in 24 minutes. If I can't make a decision in 24 minutes, I'll revisit it in 24 hours. If after 24 hours I can't make a decision, I've just made a decision. It's not important. Next, move on. So where we end up in our life is a direct result of our decisions. And the reason that people don't make decisions is they're scared of their own ones. So that's the only reason. If you knew that every single decision that you made was the correct one, you'd make more decisions. So I've realized something, that the only way that you realize whether the decision is right or wrong is after the event. No one, including me, wakes up and says, you know what, I'm going to go mess up today. But occasionally I do. But I believe what an expert is someone that has made all the mistakes in a particular niche field. So when it comes to book writing, I've made them all. When it comes to speaking, I've made them all. When it comes to marriage, I've made them all, right? And every time that you get a mistake or you make a decision and it's a mistake, it moves you one step towards being an expert. If you get that decision right, it moves you one step towards success. You can't fail. Because where we end up in our life is a direct result of our decisions. The more successful decisions that you can make, the further forward you'll become in your life. So when I go back down to my life, I never used to make fast decisions. Or if I did make fast decisions, they wasn't necessarily thought out. And where I go now is I always ask myself this question: can I live with the downside of any decision? If the answer is yes, I go and do it. If the answer is no, I don't go and do it. So that's really how I work now. In the olden days, I didn't think. I was on autopilot. My days become weeks, my weeks become months, my months become years, my years become a life. I was on autopilot. I just went through the motions, almost like programmed, like a little computer. And now I'm conscious of every single decision that I make.
And I'm in lockstep agreement with you. Like somebody told me on January 1st, well, what are your words for the year? And I thought it's the stupidest thing ever. But the two words that I chose for this year were intention and attention. Beautiful. And when I wake up in the morning, there's only a couple things that I'm going to say yes to: God, family, friends, and podcasting. If it's not one of those top five, I'm going to say no. And, so for me, I wake up, every post I make, every phone call I make, everybody I talk to, there's intention on everything that I do. And it alleviates a lot of the junk if you live with intention. Do you agree?
100%. This is the thing, is that where people end up on the wrong path is they do stuff that they don't want to do. And actually, I always follow things through and say, if I continue as I am, what does life look like? If I change path, what does life look like? Okay, what do I need to do to change path? And that's, I think, where I've ended up, from that original person that I told you that wasn't any kind of success to where I've got to, is by changing my decisions, by changing the way that I look at the world, by changing my decisions. I've ended up in a completely different place. Listen, you're a former military, you understand you're out by 1 degree. Guess what? You're out by thousands of miles. That's the reality of it, depending on the course. So you've got to make certain that where you're heading is where you want to go to or where you want to be.
All right, so then let me ask you a question, because I know when I got sober, I couldn't hang out with the same people, the same friends. And so I had to make a different decision. But then I've also had people in my past and my family that were saying, oh, well, you can't do this. They keep reminding you of the person that you used to be instead of the person that you're going to be. And a lot of people, like my friend Gary Vaynerchuk says, I try not to curse on the show, but it's my show, so I can. He says sometimes, fuck the naysayers. There's people that are going to say, you can't do this, or, you can't do this. You can't write a best-selling book. So a lot of people won't even start to do something because they're believing everything that other people are telling them. What are your thoughts?
The reality is that every step of the way, I've had people telling me I've got it wrong. every step of the way. I'm too loud. I'm too northern. I look like a drug dealer. I've got tattoos. You can't be a motivational speaker. And if I'd have listened to those people, they'd have been absolutely right. Brad, you can't write a book. Why is that? Well, because you've not got a degree. You've got no qualification. Okay, I've wrote, but you won't get it in Waterstones, the biggest retailer in the UK. I got it in Waterstones, the biggest retailer in the UK. But you won't be taken seriously as a motivational speaker because you're not wearing a three-piece suit, a pocket watch, and a monocle. Get booked globally by some of the biggest brands in the UK, JCB, Costa, Bentley, the list goes on. So every step of the way, but if it was me, Brad, it's not you. And this is what people need to understand. They do not have the same ingredients as me. They don't have the same recipe as me. We don't. So as aligned as we are, we have different ingredients. We have a different recipe, different culture, different way of looking at things. And this is what you've got to do. The first person that you have to convince of your brilliance is you. And if you can't convince yourself of your brilliance, you are not going to convince anyone else. So over in the UK, people say to me, Brad, how did you become the UK's #1 motivational business speaker? Truth, I just made a website and said I'm the UK's #1 motivational business speaker. That was 10 years ago, and I get booked as such. And I said to somebody the other day, I said, look, who made Muhammad Ali the greatest? Right? There's a reason that 40 years on we call Muhammad Ali the greatest of all time is because he referred to himself. So the first person you've got to convince of your brilliance is you. And if you can't do that, you're not going to convince anyone else. So I started that whole thing off, the UK's #1 motivational business speaker. In the UK, and you go and Google this, there's no term motivational business speaker didn't exist. I created it. It sounds like it's always been there. It's not. There used to be motivational speakers and business speakers. There was never a motivational business speaker until I created it. And this is the opportunity that presents itself. Find yourself a niche. Find yourself somewhere where people say you shouldn't go that way. And what you need to do is go against the grain. When everyone's swimming that way, you swim the other way. And that's exactly what I've done every step of my life. And it was only, I'm 50 now. My life turned around at 31. When I stopped listening to other people, I turned down the volume on other people telling me I couldn't do it. And I turned up the self-talk about the belief. That's how I changed my life.
And, I agree 100%. I've only started my podcast 3 years and people were saying, well, you can't do this. But now I've had people like you, Steve Sims, the authors of Rich Dad, the guys from Def Leppard. I shouldn't be able to do this as a 9th grade dropout. But my thought was, instead of saying, why not me, say, why me? Why not me? Why shouldn't I be able to do this? But like you're saying, if you don't believe in yourself, nobody else is going to believe in you. And even, even back in the day with Think and Grow Rich, they talk about how your obsessions become your possessions. So whatever you think about, you become. So if you start thinking success, you will become successful if you put action behind it, if you get off your arse. But it's not just think rich, it's think and grow rich. So you got to put action behind the thoughts, correct?
True story. This is the thing. There's too much talk and not enough doing. And the thing is, I'm a talker. I'm a doer. That's what I do. And I think that when I work with people, I say this, that, kind of crossing your fingers and hoping that something works isn't going to happen. Go back on to what I said before, which is, what does this make possible? The same or similar question is this: what can I do today to move myself forward? What can I do today with what I've got to move myself forward? And once you know that, you're kind of away.
I love it. So first, I want to dig deep real quick. I want to thank our sponsors. As you guys know, I was with GNC for 30 years, in the military for 23. I loved coffee, but they all tasted like crap, and they gave me the runs. So I made my own coffee. It's called Vertical Momentum Coffee. Twice the energy, twice the caffeine, but no crash. But the best part is 100% of the proceeds go to help veterans struggling with PTSD and homelessness. I don't make any money off of it, but I'm just trying to save 1 million lives this year. So guys, if you love coffee with a mission, write coffee down below. Also, if you're in New Jersey, Brad, when you come back, come up to New Jersey. I'm going to take you to this nice Italian restaurant. It's called Muriel's Italian Trattoria. They make homemade food. Literally, the mother came off the boat from Italy. So when she cooks for you, you're getting homemade Italian food. So guys, if you love Italian food, write that down below and I can get you their information. So Brad, let me ask you, what was your first foray into business? For me, it was sales. I was selling timeshares. So that's how I first got into business. And I love sales. I love people. So what was your first foray into business?
A computer game shop. So retail. I ended up working in a store over in the UK. And I was very good at almost like a pit boss. As a 16-year-old kid, like a pit boss, I would stand at the end of the shop, and I would, as people came in, I would acknowledge them, smile, greet them, and instead of going up to them when they're looking at a game and saying, "Oh, would you like any help, sir?" I would then get a conversational piece with that. "Oh, I played that last night. It's amazing. It's a great soccer game." And so that was always a good grounding. And then if you think about how I extrapolated throughout my life, my career has been effectively networking. I run 68,000 business networking meetings over in the UK before the pandemic. So I've always been that guy who actually realized the power of networking and the power of people, but also, and this is important, the power of a smile, right? It's actually genuinely being warm and open as opposed to being scowling. And that's not, people gravitate to positivity. And that's what I've always done, been a positive guy. Even when I'm not, I've been positive.
All right, so let me, because like I said, I was with GNC for over 30 years, and I think is what made me successful. Like we took the company from 400,000 a year to 1.3 million in 4 years, because when somebody came into the store, everybody else would ask, "Can I help you?" For me, I'm not asking a yes or no question. I'm going to ask, well, what kind of products do you prefer? What have you used in the past? It's not a yes or no answer. It's an open-ended question. And I believe that your success depends on the questions that you ask others and yourself. What are your thoughts?
Yeah, no question. I think I've never systemized anything, right? So I don't systemize nothing. All I do is have conversations, and I do something called cards up poker. So when people play poker, they hide their cards, they hide their hand. When I ever do any business with people, I say, "Let's have a game of poker." And they go, "What do you mean?" "Let's have a game of cards up poker. So I want you to show me your hand, and I'm going to show you my hand. So I would like to get booked for your speaking gig. You would like me to speak for you at your speaking gig. Let's be straight about where your budget is, and then we can work out rather than trying to work it. Let's be honest." So by playing that game, it's been really refreshing from business perspective, because you don't have to do the merry dance. You just get down to business and get down to being honest. So I've never been strategic in my approach, other than being open in my approach, and that has served me beautifully from a business perspective.
I love that. And like when I go to buy a vehicle, I'm going to go there. I'm going to tell them, "This is what I want. This is the budget I have. I know you guys have to make money. I understand it. I'm a businessman. Don't send your manager over, because I've been the manager. This is just what it is. Can you do it or not? If not, I understand."
Right.
I don't have the need. I don't need to buy the car. I want to buy the car. And
Nice.
and if you can't get me the car for what I want, somebody else will. And I think, a lot of people, like you said, they do the dance around, and then you're so aggravated. You just crush your relationships. And
Correct.
for me, I'm a relationship guy. Like me and you are becoming friends, and I want to build a generational relationship. So when you come over, I come over there, like I'm friends with the Iron Chef Simon Majumdar. And, I cherish my relationship, because if I go to England, I want to hang out with Rick Allen from Def Leppard. I want to hang out with you. I want to hang out with Simon. So I think people don't think about, they think about the quick hit for a sale. They don't believe in the relationships. So talk about relationships in business.
So when my life turned around was when I took it out of the short term to the medium and long term. So I was no longer short term. Hey, I need some drugs. I need a hit. I need some fun, right? And actually, for the duration, when you wean yourself off, it's painful, it's uncomfortable. But then when you get to the medium point, everything's good. Same goes for personality, for relationships, is that, take yourself out of the short term. Take yourself out of the short term and look at yourself from a medium and long-term play on everything. And by doing so, you'll be further forward. Look, I run a networking organization in the UK, For Networking Limited. And actually, we run 68,000 business networking meetings, real life ones, in meetings until the pandemic came on the 22nd of February or March, 22nd of February, March 2020. Boris Johnson asked us to stay at home, at which point my network effectively collapsed. We thought it might be 2 or 3 months. It collapsed. That's the reality of it. But the relationships that I've formed throughout that, I've got a guy who's just come in my house. I'm going to be out with him after this, who I've not seen for like 8 months. So one way or another, it's about longevity. It's about long term. Switch your thinking, switch your relationship building from short term to medium to long term, and you'll feel the benefits beyond the short term.
And I totally agree. And like our mutual friend from over the pond, Steve D. Sims talks about in his book Blue Fishing, is you have to do things. If you want to be successful today, you have to do things different than everybody else is doing. Like when I approached you and I said, Brad, I would love to have you come on the show. I would love to promote your book and everything you've got going on. You don't mind saying yes, because it's not about me. It's about helping you. But if I would have said, hey, Brad, I'm the #1 vetpreneur podcast in the world, come on the show, you'd probably look at me like, who is this guy? He's not adding any value. And why should I come on his show if he's not adding value?
Richard, there's 2 things here that are funny, right? I'm laughing. I knew all about you, okay? I knew about you for some time. But here's the interesting one. In one of my books, I wrote this, that you will never be the market leader copying the market leader. You will never be the market leader copying the market leader. So it's about being fundamentally different. There is no motivational speaker in the UK that has tattoos, bald head, 50-year-old, walks around like he's looks like a drug dealer. He's not, by the way, anymore. We can all change. Got shot at, and who speaks. There's just no one. I'm in a field of one. I'm in a field of one, and it goes back down to it. There is 100 motivational speakers in the UK that have been up Mount Kilimanjaro, that have circumnavigated the globe in a Pacamac on a unicycle. I've done none of those things, but what I've done is I've turned my life around. I have turned my life around. And the way that I turn my life around is by turning my thinking around. And if I can do it, then anyone can do it. But you'll never be the market leader copying the market leader. So as you said, it is about being fundamentally different.
And like for me, like now that we become friends, I'm following you on Twitter, I'm following you on LinkedIn, and I'm going to interact with you and I'm going to build those relationships. But I think, especially in the world of social media, people aren't social anymore. And I think if you're not, go ahead. I'm sorry.
No, listen, the reason that you blow my mind, because I wrote something 2 days ago. I said, social media isn't social anymore. It's
where do you think I got that from?
Okay. True. It's been weaponized. This is not social. There was a time in around 2010, 2011, 2012. It was like the village. It was a place to meet, and it was cool. Now it's almost like digital ghettos. Digital ghettos. It is turned dark. The thing has turned dark, and I don't like it like I once did. I don't like it anymore. But somewhere along the way, I'm still in love with social media and everything that's associated with it. Look at the magic. The magic right now that you're over in New York and I'm over in the UK and we're talking. Beautiful. This is beautiful. However, there's lots of darkness associated with these sort of pockets right now of social media, and I don't like it. And maybe I'm showing my age. Maybe I'm a bit like when my parents with the Beatles, and they're going, what are you talking about, the Beatles? It's Roy Orbison that matters. And maybe this is a generational thing, but I know, or I feel that right now it's been weaponized, and social media, I just say, it isn't social.
Now, like, I love that we're able to talk. And I was just talking to a young lady on Friday. She used to work for, Dodi Fayed, and worked with Princess Di, getting them dressed and did their clothing. and right before they actually passed. And we
Right.
talked about, how in the UK, especially now going through not only the Queen passing, but Princess Di passing, Brexit, there's a lot of stuff to come back from. And there's a lot of pivoting being done in the UK. So how are the people pivoting in the UK?
So the problem you've got is if you've ever been punched in the mouth, it's disorientating the first time. The second time, even more so. The third time, we are out on our feet as a nation. We had bad leadership. We had a prime minister that lasted 2 weeks, the shortest one in our country's history. 2 weeks, followed by another prime minister that I voted for, which actually, not necessarily a mistake, but not a good prime minister. So we have come from one thing to another thing to another thing. Brexit was in itself would have been a problem for a generation. The Queen dying, problem for a generation. The pandemic, massive problem for a generation. Interest rates. We have, as a nation, we are out on our feet. And it requires what I call self-leadership right now. There is no cavalry. There is no cavalry. And you can go and pop another smoke. No one's coming. Right? Stop it. So we, as individuals, have to become our own self-leadership. It's almost like the Walking Dead program right now. There is no leadership. And if there is leadership, it's divisive, it's discombobulated. So we as individuals, and this isn't, as a nation state, it shouldn't be like this way, but it is. And I think the problem is that everyone's trying to maintain and sustain the way that it once was. And remember what I said from earlier, which is trying to go back to a time and a place that no longer exists. The politics of old and the security of old has gone. And we, as individuals, need to prepare and look out for ourselves right now, which is sad. As someone who is pro-government, it's really sad to see this whole thing right now. And I am instilling this kind of confidence with people that I meet, business owners. They're looking at what the interest rates are, or what the Bank of England are doing. Forget it. You can't impact it. And I am now 2 years of not watching the news. I've watched a total 2 hours in 2 years. 2 hours in total. And because I would rather be uninformed and happy than informed and miserable. Now, there's wars going on right now over in the Ukraine and so forth. That doesn't mean I don't care about individuals. Of course I do. But I can't impact. And all it would end up doing is bringing me down. And all it would end up doing is my light would go down. And how does that help the world? How does it help my family? How does it help those people that I look after? It doesn't. So this is what we've got to do. You've got to understand that your biggest chance of success is this. Your biggest chance of failure is this. So we are what we eat. If we go and eat fast food, junk food all day long, we'll get fat. If we go and watch the news all day about terrible stuff, we'll feel down. So we are what we eat. We are what we eat. We are what we see. We are what we hear. So make certain that what you're dieting on, when you're eating, you're hearing and seeing, is what you want to be dieting on, or eating, hearing and seeing.
And that's one thing. Like, I've been on a news diet since 2 years ago. I don't know what's going on in the world unless it has to do with tech, business. I choose what I watch because junk in, junk out, and a lot of people, they say, well, I can't change my life, and I tell them, listen, your life is like a Facebook page. For 30 days, if you just go in and heart all the positive stuff and swipe all the negative stuff, within 30 days, you're going to be seeing nothing but positive. And that's your life. If you stop, like for me, I still have my books. I wake up every morning, I go for my walk, and I listen to books on Audible. I'm a big gratitude guy. Before I go to bed every night, I pray for my wife, and I say 3 things that I'm grateful for. And then when I wake up in the morning, because 3 years ago I lost 80% of my vision, if I can see something, I'm grateful, and I'll say out loud, thank you. Today's going to be an amazing day. And my life gets a lot better, because I'm waking up, going to sleep with gratitude, waking up with gratitude. And I had my friend David Meltzer came on the show, and he said, gratitude and anger cannot occupy the same space. So talk to me about gratitude. I know you're a gratitude guy. So talk to me about gratitude.
2 things here. I had a spiritual awakening 2 years ago. Mind blowing. We can get into that if you want to later. But you can't go left and right at the same time, right? You can't go left and right at the same time. We should leave Europe. We should stay in Europe because we want the benefits. I want to be single. I want to be married. I want to be self-employed. I want to have the security of a job. This is why people end up stuck. You can't go left and right at the same time. We end up stuck. So you need to decide on a course of action. When the pandemic happened over in the UK, my business got wiped out. So it was a $3 million roughly American dollars a year. So the pandemic came along, it went to nothing overnight through no fault of my own. I could get angry and I could get frustrated, but it went to, and that's reality. And I remember we was at sea. That's probably the best way to describe it. We was at sea. And I said to my team, guys, I know where we're going. It's this way. And they're saying, well, how do you know? How have you got so much certainty about it's this way? Come on. Because I just know. I had no idea. But what I knew is if we didn't row for shore, even though nowhere to be seen, we would have died. We'd have lost anyway. So we went for it. And that's what leadership's about. Leadership is about making decisions that not everyone will agree with. And when it comes to, as your friend said about gratitude, and it's back on. So every single day, I am more thankful than I've ever been. See, there was a time, and this is what I say, how did anyone ever become happy in life before 100-inch televisions? How did anyone ever lose weight before Weight Watchers meals, calorie reduction meals? We made life far too complicated. We've become addicted to comfort. And somewhere along the way, what we need to do is we need to look around what we've actually got and be thankful, because I see too many people that my life is going to be good when I get a 40-inch television. They get a 40-inch television and my life's going to be good when I get a 60, then an 80, then 100, then a 100-inch curved, and now you want a television, a cinema room. It never ends. And this is the problem, is that this is why people get discombobulated, because they want to get to the top of the mountain. They get to the top of the mountain, then they look left and they look right, and their Lamborghini isn't as good as because they've got someone with a Bugatti. I had a friend of mine who bought a £2 million yacht, small yacht thing, full of excitement. We went there for a party. How amazing. And then he took his yacht to Marbella over in Spain. And his $2 million yacht was tiny. And all these other yachts. And my friend wilted. He wilted. Over in Southampton, his yacht was amazing. He's now gone over to Marbella. There's bigger yachts. And now he's wilted. Mind-blowing. That, to me, sums up what gratitude's about. Be thankful about what you've got, because right now, do you think about any of our lives, no matter how difficult they are or what challenges we face, there'll be someone over in the Ukraine right now that'll have the same amount of problems, that'll be fleeing the Russian army with the children with a load of plastic bags and actually scared for their life. So put it in perspective, people. No matter what series of problems and challenges you've got, we're doing okay. We're doing okay.
Yeah, and I love that, and I agree. Like, if I see somebody that has a bigger house than me, and I'm like, God bless them. That's awesome. God bless them. But if I see, well, maybe I want a house like that, but I'm still saying, you know what, God, I'm grateful for what I have. And I believe God, universe, whatever you call him, he's like a father of our children. If my children just keep taking and aren't grateful for what they have, I'm not going to want to give them anymore. And I think the world, the universe, God, whatever you call them, yep. if you are not grateful for what you have, he can't give you more. He won't give you more. And I think that's people need to start realizing.
This is one of the things that I realized, okay, is that we've spent so much time as individuals in the physical world. Okay, so it's a physical world, material world, emotional world, spiritual world, religious world. Now we've also got another world added into there, digital world. Our lives have been sliced in terms of what we've already had to deal with. We've now added digital on top of that. It's really difficult to balance everything, but that's what life's about, balance. And actually you can't have everything, because if you have everything, you have nothing. And we need to have that gratitude that you talk about. We need to be thankful for what we've got. Because I'll tell you something, if you're always turning left and flying first class, it's no longer class, it's standard. And this is where we go wrong as individuals, is that we have everything and yet we have nothing. And there's something I've realized, I had a multi-million-pound business once. I don't anymore. I don't. But I look at it and think, I did it. I did the unthinkable. I made that happen. Now, I'm 50. My dad went at 53. Am I really going to spend the next 3 years, 10 years or whatever, building up a big business again? What, for what? What is it about in the big business of having 15 staff and a team of 800 out in the field? What is it that I'm lacking in my life? I'm lacking nothing in my life anymore. Because I realized, because I'll go back to the original point you made, gratitude. I'm so thankful. I did it. If you're the heavyweight champion of the world, you're Mike Tyson, and you win the heavyweight champion of the world, you've done it. The game is complete. You don't need to go and win it again. And that's, I think, where I'm at right now. Kind of gratitude. I'm so thankful for what I've achieved. And the fact that stuff has gone, my old world, I'm not crying myself to sleep anymore. I'm just not. I look at it and I think, wow, you did it, Brad. You did it. Whether you do it again or not, it's irrelevant. You did it.
It's something that I don't know anything about football or soccer. So I bought a video game just so I can learn how to play soccer, just so I can understand the rules. And it amazes me how, like you're talking about earlier about when COVID hit. For me, I looked at it as, okay, everybody's going to be home. So there's going to be more people listening to podcasts.
Nice.
And that's when I started the podcast. Because like Wayne Gretzky, the great hockey player here in the United States, says, I go to where the ball is going to be. And I think when a lot of business owners, we don't know how to pivot. Like for me, like I said, as soon as I say, okay, everybody's going to be home, well, they're going to be binge watching TV. They're going to be listening to podcasts. So that's when I started to change my whole perspective. So talk about pivoting in business.
Yeah, I think pivoting in life. I think it's just one and the same. I talk about this book here, Life, Business Just Got Easier. I've blurred the lines between them. I've got no differential between them. I've not, it's one and the same for me. It's a bit like having a cordial drink. So you've got water and then you put some orange juice in there and it makes one drink. So pivoting or changing direction, it's never too late to change direction. I was 31 when I started my business. 31. I'm 50 now. I know I look younger, thank you. But, I was 31 and it's never too late to change direction. And whatever's going on right now, if you make certain where you're heading is where you want to go to. And if it's not, change it. But I go back down to that point I made, which is if you're 1 degree out, over the course of your journey, you're going to end up in a completely different direction. So the smallest of changes that you can do today, the smallest of pivots, the tiniest, 0.01 of a change, you'll end up in a completely different direction. So, not everyone can dramatically pivot, but everyone can pivot. Everyone can make change. And that's what I'd say to you today, which is this. What can you do today to change direction, to head to where you want to be? And go and do that. Even the smallest of pivots will move you forward.
And I love that. And, a lot of people don't realize that Heathrow Airport is the third busiest airport in the world. Correct. So even if you go to the right airport and you get on the wrong plane, you're still going to end up in the wrong spot. So I think like you said, even in the military, if I shoot my tank and I'm just 1 degree off, it's gonna turn and I'm gonna hit the wrong target. So I love what you're saying. So now you've been in business a while. You're an OG. So now if somebody's starting a business today, the first day of summer 2023, what would be your top 3 pieces of advice?
Beautiful question. Let me get these down. So here's what I'll do. Get a piece of paper, and from memory, I want you to write down all the people that you know from memory. So I know Steve, the guy I used to work with, my ex-girlfriend, my best friend. I want you to write all those those names on a piece of paper. Then what I want you to do is I want you to get another pen, different color pen, and I want you to write next to each of those names H, W, or C. Hot, warm, or cold, your relationships, okay, with those individuals. Now, your best friend, Richard, what's your best friend called?
My best friend is Kumar.
Kumar. So if you turned up at Kumar and said, hey, Kumar, 4 o'clock in the morning, I've got a dead body in my boot. Do you have a hacksaw? Kumar would say yes. Yes, I do. Right? Because you're good friends. If you turned up with somebody that you've met in the store once and said, I've got a dead body in the boot, the police would be on the way to you. So your relationship with people at hot, warm, and cold is different. So by establishing from memory, it's just good exercise, from memory, who's hot, who's warm, who's cold, then transfer all the hot people to a piece of paper and then ring them. And you say to these hot people, hey, Kumar, I'm starting a podcast off. Can you give me some help and support? Or do you know anyone that would like me as a client? Boom. And all of a sudden, those people will help you forward. And that will give you confidence, because success breeds confidence, confidence breeds success. So as your confidence increases, so will your ability to then deal with the warm conversations. So hot, warm, and cold. And that in itself will move you forward, because you'll start learning about you, you'll start feeling the fear, and you'll push through. So that's what I would do for the first thing. Second thing, I would say, make it easy for people to say yes. Make it easy for people to say yes. So let's say, for instance, that you're selling these clocks, okay? And you've got 100 clocks there. You go to local businesses and say, these clocks, time timers, are the most amazing timers ever. Can I suggest that what this will do is it will increase your productivity massively. However, I'm going to make this easy for you to say yes. They go, how's that? I'm going to leave it with you for a week, okay? And you look at your productivity. If your productivity increases, do we have a deal? So, boom. So all of a sudden, you took the decision that you made it easy for people to say yes. So that's what I do, rather than make it easy for people to say no. And that's what goes on in business. Lots of people make it easy to say no. So that's what I do. Make it easy for people to say yes. Come up with a way that you can make it easy. They go, I'll give you a trial, or I'll put my money where my mouth is, or I really want to work with you. The third thing I'll do is ask yourself this question. If I put a gun to your head and I said, I need you to double your sales in the next week, what would you do? So I put a gun to your head there, Richard, and said, double your sales in the next week, or you won't see next week. What would you do?
I'm going to be dialing for dollars. I'm going to be calling everybody I know. Hey, bro, I need your help.
And this is what I say to people that say, why aren't you doing it now? Because you've not got a gun against your head. Well, you need to put yourself a metaphorical gun against your head. I call it Manchester motivation, which is the city that I was born in. You know, by doing that, Manchester motivation, it gets you tuned in, because what happens is all the excuses that you would ordinarily be using, they've gone, because you've got a metaphorical gun to your head. That's what I would do. And that allows you to then get your best and say, right, what do I need to do to make this happen?
I love it. So my last question is, where do we find you? How do we support you? Where do we find your amazing book? It's like I said, you know, I've read over 6,000 books, and your book is in the top 10 of any book that I have ever read. You know, so where do we find your books?
So can I just say that there's so, you know, if you knew my journey, which I've shared today, you'd understand the difference that I've made, that when I'm gone, and let's be honest, we're all going to be gone. My office that I'm in right now, one day this is going to be changed, and somebody else is going to sit in my office, and my dream is going to be somebody else's dream. The fact is that those legacy pieces, that my ideas, that if I'd not been shot at in Manchester and had not moved away and had not started the business and wrote the books, that it wouldn't have come into your brain. It's fascinating. So that's made me really proud now. Thank you for that, Richard. In answer to that question, Amazon is the primary place to buy my books, and also Work with Brad. You know, workwithbrad.biz, opportunities there to contact me. Find me on social medias. I would be delighted to hear from people around the globe. I really would, as I'm just a working class lad, right? And I'm just making it up as I go along. We all are. And once you realize that I'm making it up, Richard's making it up, and every single person is just making it up, life becomes a whole lot easier, because you realize that, you know, that you are making it up as well. And it's okay. But just keep going, keep making decisions. And if you get it wrong, it moves you one step towards success. Being an expert. If you get it right, it moves you one step towards success. You can't fail by moving forward.
I love it. And by the way, I want to publicly thank Kerry for making this all possible. I want to give a shout out. Thank you. Without you, we wouldn't be able to do what we're doing. So I want to give you a public shout out and say thank you. Brad, I just want to say, brother, I'm so grateful that we finally got together. I'm truly humbled and grateful for your friendship. And I can't wait to see what you got coming on in the future. And when you come over, we definitely have you come over for dinner, have a barbecue, and hang out.
Thank you, friend. Thank you.
All right, guys, remember vertical momentum. The only way to go is but up. And guys, like you all know, I love Joel Osteen, and my favorite quote is, "We all have a choice. You can either be the victor or the victim. Please, please, please choose to be the victor today." I love you guys, and I'll see you later. Brad, have an amazing week. Tell Carrie, thank you, thank you, thank you.
Thank you, boss.
Be good.